Hey, Diana, did you know that AI isn't really all that scary?
Mark, that's the dumbest thing you've ever said.
Ladies and gentlemen, jurists and just curious, welcome to the Successful Barrister Podcast. Here you'll learn about marketing, management, and life skills for lawyers that probably won't get you disbarred. Hosted by Marc Whitehead, a seasoned lawyer who remembers when fax machines were cutting edge, and Diana Berry, attorney, COO, and the brains behind the scenes. Together, they are the legal world's most dynamic duo since statutes met regulations. So if you're looking to build a practice, not a prison, you're in the right place. Welcome to the Successful Barrister, where legal legends are made.
And welcome to the Successful Barrister Podcast, the podcast for lawyers about marketing, management, and life skills that probably won't get you disbarred. I'm your host, Marc Whitehead, along with my co-host and COO of my law firm, Diana Berry. Hey, Diana, what's up?
Hey, Mark, how are you doing?
Good. So today, we are going to talk about the latest CLIO Trends Report, which came out in the latter part of 2024. But as we sit here in January 2025, we're kind of catching up on some of this stuff. And for those who are not aware, first of all, CLIO is a case management vendor, software company. But of course, one of their little marketing hooks to get their name out there is that they put together an annual legal trends report, which I'm not quite sure where they get their data from, but I think they use a combination of surveys and maybe
Of their clients.
some other things. Basically, they have a broad client base that they survey. And I always like the CLIO Trends Report because typically it talks about management and marketing issues. This year, as one might expect, since we are in the AI explosion era, it focused on law firms' use of artificial intelligence, AI, which, right out of the gate had a real negative experience for lawyers. There was a lot of publicity about a few lawyers that basically used AI to write legal briefs. I think specifically they were using ChatGPT, of which ChatGPT, if it doesn't know the answer, it has a tendency to make up the answer.
Hallucinations.
It hallucinates, and it hallucinated and made up some case law that these lawyers were dumb enough not to check.
Yes.
It's called shepherdizing.
That's unfortunate.
Yes, and they got busted. And not only did they get sanctioned by the court, but they were publicly humiliated over the whole deal, which probably is worse.
Exactly. But I'm glad that the legal industry learned that one really early on relatively early on.
It was like almost the first thing out of the gate. It was
that
like
everyone heard about.
That everyone heard about. So
I think it made us more cautious is why I think it was a good thing that it came out so early. You don't, the more use, maybe people would have gotten a little more lazy with it.
Exactly.
But we all were a lot more cautious with the use of AI.
We're going to talk a little bit about some of the trends and predictions and possibilities that are kind of outlined in the CLIO Trends Report, but then we're kind of put our own spin on it because here at Marc Whitehead Associates, we do use AI. We are trying to integrate it into a lot of our repetitive tasks and to some of our creative tasks in a measured, I would say, careful way. We're trying to be careful with it.
Absolutely.
And we've explored, I think, at least 3 or 4, maybe even up to 5 different AI tools.
That's fair.
Some have shown some success. Some have
we've parted ways,
crashed and burned, and we have gotten rid of. So all of these things are, kind of out there, and it's kind of a scary world. So one of the things, and again, we talk about Atticus a lot in this program, but Atticus, through the leadership of Steve Riley, one of the owners of Atticus, has really taken heart to AI. He's like the AI guru over there. And we've been going through, we've kind of been checking in and out. I would say that our attendance at these monthly AI training sessions started off strong and then has sort of become sporadic as of late.
So in 24, they did monthly 2-hour AI sessions for all of their Atticus members. And so that's what you're referring to, right? I don't think they're doing them monthly in 25.
They're not. They're going to go back down to quarterly. What I will say, this again, plugging for Atticus, if you become a member of Atticus, all of these sessions are recorded and they're all available for free to the membership.
In the portal.
And again, I want to go to atticusadvantage.com. And I've said in past podcasts, atticusonline.com. And I realized that I was giving out the wrong URL. It's atticusadvantage.com. But anyway, so we've kind of had the benefit this year of kind of, like I said, checking in and out of that program.
Exactly. Yeah.
As time allows. But we've kind of learned quite a few things, quite a few tips and tricks. But one of the first things, that Steve said, and I'm sure he stole this quote from somebody, but basically, AI is not going to replace lawyers, but lawyers who use AI are going to replace lawyers who don't.
Yes.
And I think that is the key thing that we have to realize. That we look at technology over time. Remember, you probably don't remember, but back in my day, we used to have books and we had shepherd's tables and we had the Westlaw digest that we used, and they would literally take up rooms and rooms if you wanted to, of books, if you wanted to do legal research. And then I'm sure by the time you came along, y'all just used Westlaw.
We did. When we have the books, of course, but we were on Westlaw, cloud-based, and LexisNexis.
Well,
and that's
it's
how
sort of the same thing. So, obviously when lawyers of your generation got to be proficient using Westlaw, you ran circles around lawyers of my generation that had to go back to the books because we hadn't really learned Westlaw, which is why we hired y'all to come in and help us. Who, not how.
Yes.
I don't need to learn how to use Westlaw. I just need to hire somebody that knows how to use it.
Yep, and we follow that today with our law clerks. And so I think today we're going to talk about AI generally and what's worked for our firm and kind of how we've decided to maybe pursue AI in 25, but all in terms of the CLIO report. Is that right?
And I think start with probably when you talk about business models, because I think AI really is going to affect different lawyers' business models differently depending on what type of practice they have.
Exciting times.
So we'll kick off with that right after the break.
This podcast is sponsored by Marc Whitehead Associates, a national disability benefits law firm. Marc Whitehead runs a firm of over 60 dedicated people whose mission is to make a difference in the lives of our injured and disabled clients. Marc represents disabled claimants in Social Security disability, private disability insurance, and veterans disability claims in all 50 states. Marc Whitehead is double board certified in both Social Security disability law and personal injury trial law. Marc has litigated disability cases in over 40 states and counting and can help your clients too. Stop throwing your phone calls away. Call Marc Whitehead at 701-VIP-LEAD. That's 701-VIP-LEAD. Or visit our website at disabilitydenials.com. Referral fees are paid in all jurisdictions where it is permitted. Refer us your disability cases today and know that your clients will be in good hands.
All right. So the first thing I noticed in the CLIO Trends report, it said that 89% of legal professionals are now using some form of AI. Now, I will say probably the first thing that popped into my head, because I always question statistics anytime I hear them, what that really meant was 79% of CLIO customers surveyed use some form of AI. And of course, that means that they are using a CRM system, a sophisticated CRM system, CLIO, which means they're already a little bit technologically sophisticated. So I would say that if you took a broader survey of all lawyers out there, including the old paper curmudgeons that are probably still using books and not Westlaw, as we've talked about in the first segment, probably a little less, I would say probably significantly less than 79%. but let's give it the benefit of the doubt. Let's say half.
All right.
Half of lawyers out there are using some form of AI, and I am quite certain that it is the curve is definitely related to the age of that particular lawyer.
But we're not going to be ageist.
But we're not going to be ageist here. I can be ageist because I'm very aged, as I like to say. I'm very vintage.
But you do lead the path in terms of AI. You were one of the first adopters, I think, with using just chat for basic non-privileged things like drafting letters or summarizing things.
Yes. So, all right, code word. So we use the term here in the law office, chat for ChatGTP, specifically ChatGTP 4.0, the paid version, which is $20 a month. But you know, being the word bumbler that I am, I can't say the word GTP very clearly. So I just came up with the word chat. So now in the office, we just call it the chat.
Which I find myself saying outside of this law firm, which is a little embarrassing.
It is embarrassing when you say that in public because everybody thinks you're weird.
Probably am, and that's okay. They know.
What is wrong with this? Does this person really have a law license? How did this person get through the bar?
One of the first things that you took away from the CLIO report was in relation to billing models.
Right. You know, so we deal a lot with this in Atticus because we have different types of coaching clients that I coach. I coach an hourly billing client. I coach contingency fee lawyers. There are flat fee lawyers out there, more bundled service lawyers out there. And each one has a different business model, you know, and I think how AI is going to affect each of these business models differently. You know, the first one, the billable lawyer, you know, of which I have never been one, thank God, but I know enough about it to know that this is sort of scary for the billable lawyer hours because, you know, there's a lot of ABA opinions out there that you can only bill for the actual time spent if you're doing a billable hour model. Well, guess the biggest hourly, you know, money driver out there for a billable hour firm, especially a litigation firm, is like doing things like, well, deposition summaries, which you could bill hours for that. Well, guess what? Now you can do using AI, you can do a depo summary in a matter of 3 minutes. So, and there's a lot of tasks like that within a billable practice that all of a sudden are going to rob the billable hour firm of billing opportunities. I mean, that is a bit scary. And they're very concerned about it. I've talked to a lot of people about that. And I think the CLIO report even mentioned that in their survey.
Yep, the CLIO report said basically that the rise of AI prompts a shift from hourly billing to flat fee or even hybrid billing models.
Right. As opposed to a flat fee billing model or a contingency fee billing model, you know, there you're basically, the lawyer is selling results, or the way they termed it, selling value. So what value am I providing? I'm going to provide a certain value. In exchange for that value, I'm going to either get a contingency fee or a flat fee. Well, what does that incentivize the lawyer to do? That incentivizes the lawyer to be as efficient with their time as possible, which is sort of the exact opposite of the billable hour model. So in our world, in a contingency fee world, or even a flat fee world, I want to get everything done as quickly, as cheaply as possible, because the faster I can do things, the cheaper I can do things, the higher my profit margin is.
Yes, exactly. And so I think that you're exactly right about the fear from hourly billing attorneys that, you know, they may lose revenue streams, or at least consistent revenue streams, but with the rise of AI. And so, but I think that one of the things that I took away from the CLIO report was, on the plus side, less fear, more positivity, was that legal professionals that bill with flat fees actually collect payments almost immediately. They're twice as likely as those billing hourly to collect their fees immediately. It was pretty exciting.
Again, so I've been preaching this for years to my billable hourly friends. First of all, the fundamental flaw with the billable hour is you can't scale yourself. You only have so many hours that you can work. There's only so many hours in a day that you can bill. And it, number one, you just run yourself ragged. But number two, you can't scale yourself. So the only way to scale is to hire more and more billable hourly people below you, either billable paralegals or billable associates or whatever. And that's why you have big law, because they sell the billable hour. And the only way that they can scale is to hire more and more and more lawyers, which is why you have these, was it probably what, Norton Rose, Fulbright, I don't even know what they call themselves nowadays. Thousands of lawyers. Well, there's a reason for that. Well, the problem is now they get top heavy because, everybody wants to be a partner. Well, they can only allow a certain number of partners. So there's kind of built-in churn into that. They want their associates to crap out. They want a certain amount of them to quit. It's just a kind of a vicious cycle. I mean, I've known so many people that basically got chewed up and spit out of big law. And this is my own personal bias. I'm sure they love themselves over there, but
It is unfortunate. So back to AI and the billing model, we are
value. It's
There
about
you go.
creating value. Every business book I ever read, I know you're rolling your eyes at me like I'm going off on a tangent, and I am going off on a tangent.
I did not.
And I'm going off on a
We're recording. I did not roll my eyes.
You're being videoed. I saw the eye roll. But any business is about creating value for their customer.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter what you're selling. You can be selling coat hangers. You can be selling widgets. You can be selling coffee. You can be running a lemonade stand. Everybody is selling some value proposition. Well, people don't want your time. They want results.
Exactly.
People come to lawyers to have them help solve their problem. They want results. So the billable hour method is just extremely inefficient for that. It's counterintuitive to that. I believe that billable hourly lawyers can come up with some sort of hybrid formulation to get away from that and go to some sort of bundled fee type service, flat fee type service, something. I've been encouraging a lot of my clients to move in that direction and move away from the billable hour. So back to the AI side of things.
So one of the things that the CLIO report was, at least for me, that was a takeaway in ways that hourly attorneys can use AI and maybe move to that flat fee or hybrid model, whichever one you want to go to, is that you use AI for kind of those routine tasks, so that if you do decide to move to let's call it a flat fee for the same end results, then you can at least still leverage the technology while still maintaining your relevance as a service provider.
Right. So it's about adaptability. And in this case, what we're talking about is that adapting the business model, because selling time, as we become more and more efficient, is becoming a worse and worse business proposition for the lawyer. Now let's flip that. Let's talk about the contingency fee lawyer or the flat fee lawyer. Anything that we can do to save time and effort and to become more efficient benefits us. Prime example. I literally took the CLIO trends report and shoved it into chat. And I said, write me a quick summary for a podcast. And literally in 10 seconds, now we have it. Now, otherwise, I would have probably had to, now I did read the CLIO trends report. I'm not saying I didn't read it. But to summarize it, it probably would have taken me 10, 15, 20 minutes of my time to do that, just for the purposes of this podcast.
That would have taken me a lot longer. It was 68 pages, Mark.
Okay, maybe longer, but just one tiny example of how I save time. Another example, I had a client last week that was a little perturbed about an issue. And I was just, anytime I have a difficult client that I'm trying to soothe over it, it's sort of one of those things I kind of put off. I just kind of put off. I simply went to the ChatGPT and I gave it 4 sentences. I said, I have a client. He's irritated about this, and here are the facts. And I dictated this in, so I didn't even have to type it. And this is the issue. Write a letter to soothe their feelings. That's exactly what I said. Soothe their feelings. Make it professional. Popped it out. And of course, I didn't put the client name in because ChatGPT, there's questions about security, so don't put any private client information in it.
OpenAI, so
It's
it absolutely
OpenAI.
becomes part of the universe.
Right. So, but it just like say, dear client, it spit out a letter, a perfectly good letter. And I probably could have made a few changes to it to make it slightly better. But then I looked at it and like, it's good enough. Boom, done. You know, something that I'd been dreading doing for several days. I just been putting it off because I feel like, oh, hell.
And I think you bring up a good point about attorneys that are, to our Hey Diana question here, it's not intimidating. It doesn't have to be intimidating. Rather, to use non-privileged information for ChatGPT or the chat, to just figure out what it can and can't do. How much do you like it? Playing with prompts. It all sounds so very
Ask it
intimidating. Exactly. And so doing the basic things that you just said, it's a great way to get privileged, to get started with AI in your firm.
My web vendor the other day said he was writing a page for our website on the biggest disability insurance carriers in the company. And he asked me, can you tell me what they are? And I'm like, well, I kind of know off the top of my head, but I don't have any real statistics. I literally put the question into the chat, and I said, name me the 10 biggest disability insurance companies in the country by volume of sales, and cite your sources. I always say cite your sources.
Yeah.
And boom, it popped it out. Well, it turns out its source was one thing. It was an article in I think it was in the Wall Street Journal, but it found it for me. So it was actually outside the paywall, amazingly enough. But is that a trustworthy source? I would say so. So I went with it. I mean, it's a website, So just things like that. Just ask it questions.
Well, now
Ask it
Google probably
questions.
would have done that too, just FYI.
Google would, so what Google would do, it would take a couple of extra steps, because Google would sit there and then just cite a bunch of sources, and then you would have to go in and read the sources. And sometimes the first source is not the best source. I did that the other day. My Mustang, the battery was dead, and I couldn't figure out. I opened the hood and I couldn't find the battery. I literally couldn't find. Like, where's the battery of this thing? I can't find it. I had to Google it and ask, where is the battery located in 2015? Turns out there's a cover on top of it. It's sitting right there where you would think a battery would be, but there's a plastic cover. You got to figure out how to take it off.
Hidden in plain sight.
It took me. I had to look through 3 different sources to find that, because I was just going through Google.
Which is, I think, also a very good point that we've brought up on this podcast before. It's the 10-80-10 rule. I did do math there. That does equal 100%. 10%, it's the legal assistant role when you're using AI. 10%, make sure you ask it the right question, set the right prompt up for it. And then 80% is let the AI do the heavy lifting for you. And then the 10% is to check it. In a similar way, we would do the same thing about a first-year associate. Make sure you give the first-year associate the 10%, the background, maybe the cause of action that you want him or her to look up, and let your first-year associate do 80% of the heavy lifting, the research, the writing, the drafting, and all that stuff. And then 10% is you assume that they have shepherdized everything correctly, and 10% is just you editing it and making it presentable. And so that's a great tool I think we found for using AI, is make sure you're asking it the right question and to get the better result. And so I think one of the things that I like to think about is that AI won't replace lawyers, and so it's just going to replace lawyers who don't use AI. So what have you found, what's worked well in our firm with AI?
So we have recently signed a contract with Westlaw for their AI product called CoCouncil. And CoCouncil is it's a little harder to use than the ChatGPT. But number one, it's closed AI. So you can actually put client information into it, and presumably you can trust it when it comes up with a legal site, because it is Westlaw. It is citing to real case law. I did a little exercise with it last month. I got a denial letter from an insurance company denying a client's long-term disability insurance claim. And the denial letter was just full of hocus pocus and BS. And I read it, and I'm like, okay. So I fed the letter into the CoCouncil, the Westlaw CoCouncil, and I said, give me a summary of the reasons for the denial. And it spit out a nice brief summary of 9 points. There were 9 areas that the insurance company cited as for their reasons for the denial. So in other words, they took a 5 or 6 page letter and they quickly gave me the 9 or 10 reasons. And I went back and back checked it. I looked at it again. I'm like, okay, it got it right. It was correct. Okay, great. So then I started feeding it more information. I fed it the medical file, because we had a medical file on this particular client. I fed it the vocational reports. I fed it the medical reports, both from their side and our side. And I started asking it discrete questions about these particular 9 reasons for denial. Give me the evidence that backs up the insurance company's claim about reason number 1. Give me a summary of the evidence that backs up our counter argument to their denial for reason number 1, and so forth. And I just took it baby steps down the line. And before you knew it, I had a nice response letter, or the elements of a nice response letter put together that I could respond to the insurance company and give them a rebuttal as to why each of their 9 reasons were incorrect. Took me a while, and what I learned is you've got to take it in baby steps. You don't ask broad questions. Why are they wrong? Well, that's a little too broad. You got to take it point by point by point.
And don't make it do a legal analysis. I don't think even ChatGPT will do legal analysis.
I asked it for an analysis. I used the word analysis specifically. Okay. It tried.
Yeah.
It tried.
I think ChatGPT will actually say, I cannot do legal analysis for you.
So the CoCouncil tried, and I would give it credit that it gave some legal analysis, or at least some factual analysis. It would point out the facts. But yeah, you've got to go in. I mean, you still got to do the critical thinking. You got to do the complex level thinking. That's what you're hired to do. But it saved me a tremendous amount of time. The point is I got this done, and the whole project took me about 2 hours. Now, admittedly, a lot of that was because I was learning. This was an experiment I was doing. Probably if I would have kind of known what I was doing, probably would have taken me less than an hour to do this. But this was something that would have taken me a day or 2 otherwise to accomplish, because it was quite a bit of material. So again, an example of how you can use AI, again, as a contingency-free firm. I want to be as quick and efficient about this as possible. Now, would this analysis, would it have satisfied a judge? Maybe not, but I wasn't writing to a judge. I was writing to an insurance adjuster. So I felt it did an adequate job.
So why CoCouncil, though? I mean, we've looked at so many different types of AI platforms. What made you comfortable signing a contract with CoCouncil?
As expensive as Westlaw is, it still is sort of, I feel it's trustworthy. You know, it's been in the game. Everybody knows.
It's Thomson Reuters.
It's Thomson Reuters. It's Westlaw. Everybody knows that they're an established player. If, you know, I don't know. I gather it's probably the most expensive tool out there, but it's the most trustworthy. And at this point in the game, I'm still a little hesitant to totally trust my life and my career and my reputation on AI. So I at least want my license. I still want to use the most trustworthy source.
So I will say, I bring you, part of my job is to bring you vendors that I think might be a good fit for the firm, both in cost and also obviously with their objective. And I brought you CoCouncil, and there were 2 things that were good factors that allowed us to move forward in the discussions and obviously ultimately sign the contract. One, it used to be called Case Text. CASE text. So it had been around for a while in its existing form before it was purchased. So I felt very comfortable that they had already done a lot of the legwork for us, and what I just in my head called economies of scale, right? So as a small firm, we are not going to dedicate, at this point anyway, someone whose sole job is AI, to go out there and find all the different AI opportunities and solutions that might work for the firm. And so we count on a much larger partner who has done the homework, done all the cybersecurity and the protection elements of investing in AI to do the work for us. And so I do think that look for the longevity of the partner, but then also, we invest in technology a lot more. We've talked a lot about that on this podcast, how this firm is very tech heavy. And obviously, as it was most law firms, your Westlaw, LexisNexis is going to be one of your heaviest tech investments. And so by partnering our AI solution with that partner, I trusted that they would stay on top of what's happening out there because competition demands it. They play at a much bigger scale than we do.
They'll be in business next year.
And be
How many startups are going to be out of business in the next year or two?
a lot of the startups, unfortunately, will count on you and your year. They make you sign the year contract and you're paid that lump sum right up front because they're counting on your investment to continue their research and of the model, of fine-tuning their model. Whereas Thomson Reuters is they don't know that our firm probably exists and is invested in them in that way. And so I do feel like CoCouncil was a very solid. We did end up signing, I think, a 2-year contract with them just because the pay. I mean, it made sense to sign it monthly. Made sense, but we also have Dialpad, which we've talked about on this podcast. Dialpad is our telephone vendor, and they have an AI component, which I'm not sure you realized. And so they look.
I had no idea. You just told me to sign the contract, and I did. So.
And that's a great relationship that we have there, Mark. But I think, one of the great things that really was exciting for us is that Dialpad will not only create transcripts of the intake call.
We use this in the intake department primarily. We use it for the firm totally, but the AI component
only exists in the intake department.
In the intake department.
Because they'll look for certain words like contract, or they'll even have kind of a sentiment scale where if the client sounds a little stressed or uses certain, they're trying to pick up on stresses, which doesn't work as well for our firm because obviously all of our clients are calling because they're stressed. But there's a lot of AI to it that allows our intake manager to do the same thing, which is listen to calls, but in a much more efficient way and using less of her time.
Right. So the basic problem that we were trying to solve with this AI component, other than just having a phone system that worked, was our intake manager. If she was, at her best, she would be listening to all of our intake specialists' calls because the calls are generally recorded for quality assurance, as the recording will always say. And the best practice is to listen to your individual intake specialists and see how they're doing, see if they're following protocol and procedure and following the script and the sales process that you set up for them. The problem is that takes a tremendous amount of time. And at best, even at her best, she can only spot check from time to time. She can't really continually do that. There's just not enough time in the day to listen to that many recorded phone calls. So the problem that AI solved through Dialpad is the AI will listen to the calls, and summarize the calls and look for certain patterns. So in other words, it's a quality control measure that we can use within our intake department to make sure that our intake specialists are doing what we think they're supposed to be doing, what we've trained them to do. Are they following protocols, procedures? And it's just a tool to allow our intake manager to be much more efficient. Now, of course, you have certain rules that you have to comply with to make that, you got to have the recordings that this may be recorded. Obviously, everything that's said is confidential, and you have to have the firewall and all that other stuff to make it secure. But it's a tool that we're just now learning how to use. So I'm not saying we have a verdict if this is working well or not. We have great hope for it.
Absolutely. Well, and it's miles ahead of what we were doing.
We were doing nothing.
Even if we end up 50% ahead of the game, not even utilizing 100% of it. And I think that also should be a very realistic goal with any team that decides to implement AI is don't expect to go from 0 to 100% right away. And it's so easy with AI to start looking at the Joneses and like, okay, well, that firm's doing it this way and that way. And they know what ChatGPT is. They created their own GPT. It's just, I would very much strongly don't look side to side. Definitely keep ahead of what's very feasible for you and your team. We also looked at another vendor, and we won't name this vendor because we
This
decided
is
not
where
to
AI
renew.
did not work.
Yeah, we did not renew this contract with this vendor. And why do you think that was?
Well, I think it was a couple of things. Number one, it was oversold. It didn't do quite what it was sold to do. And number two, for some reason, our team just didn't adopt it. They just it never
And I was hoping you
never
got to
struck
that
a
part.
nerve. I don't understand it because I'm certain we could have gotten more out of it than we did. But
Yep. So I think you brought up two very good points the second one that I was hoping you were going to talk about. But the first one, we take a quick side detour, even though I did not roll my eyes at you earlier. It was oversold, and we were talking in preparation for this podcast and your little other soapbox about not everything that is AI is really AI. So, and I think that was kind of our difficulty with this vendor. It was sold to us as it was going to summarize. So in our practice area, and actually all of our practice areas, we deal with very dense, long files that some of which are mostly scanned, thus not really OCR'd. It's a lot of technology words there, guys, but basically 2 to 10,000 pages of information that you really can't put into Adobe and say, hey, find me, like a quick search. And so this tool was built as a very easy plugin that would allow us to condense those large files and look for key words. And it really did neither of those things. No, it didn't condense files, summarize files quickly. And we found that the word search was not nearly as good as it was originally built out to be, at least for our firm.
Right. And by the way, this was a startup.
It was.
It was not an
Yes.
established company. So word to the wise, startups at a minimum, if you're going to take a leap with a startup, no long-term contracts.
And we didn't do that. We did, like you said, we
had a
elected to
1-year
not renew.
contract with them.
And which is a great kind of bridge to your second point of adoption. We found that actually the people that were using it in the firm, because we got usage statistics, weren't even using the AI component of the tool, which was very unfortunate. But the adoption is still the very basic element, whether that's a new process. AI is not at all unique in that regard. You still have to get your team's buy-in to the new way. And sometimes this is even harder because they don't want to trust technology to do what they've been doing. It's a fear of replacement, I think.
All right. Anything else we want to add before we take our last break? And then we'll come back and sort of summarize what we think is the future. We're going to prognosticate a little bit.
Sounds great.
All right. We'll be right back.
I'm Marc Whitehead, a lawyer, entrepreneur, and business coach. Thanks so much for tuning into the Successful Barrister podcast. We have a blast creating it, and I hope you find it helpful. If our chats have sparked your interest, I'd love to hear from you. Shoot me an email at marc@marcwhitehead.com. That's Marc spelled with a C. Enjoying the Successful Barrister newsletter. Even better, let's hop on a call. I'd love to chat about how we can collaborate, share ideas, or just catch up.
Where do we go from here? What's the future?
Well, I've been selling you on a vendor, and I'm going to name the vendor just because we are not at all affiliated. So I'm just, please listeners, take that with a grain of salt. It's called Foundation AI. I've come back from LitiQuest, which is a Litify conference for 2-3 years now. I've been wanting to implement this vendor. And so I think that that's also something that, listeners should keep in mind, that you don't have to do everything right now. And sometimes, especially with AI, it's better just to kind of sit back and watch before, because I came back the first time and you're like, yep, no way. We did not, I got all of our team leads and some of our attorneys on a Zoom call, and I was so excited. And I got crickets from this. And by the crickets, I knew that it was just not happening in that year, maybe not even in the next. And so Foundation AI is a tool that scans mail and will create workflows based on the mail. And so one of the things from the CLIO report that we've already talked about is that they were really big on is the potential for automation with AI by taking the same thing that you do over and over again, your routine information heavy tasks, and leveraging AI, leveraging technology to do the work that you're now counting on a lot of people to do. And so, for example, as everyone knows, we have a Social Security disability practice area and a veteran disability practice area, two governmental practice areas. And one thing that we can rely on is the mail always looks the same. So, for example, because it's a Social Security denial letter, the name of the client is going to appear in the exact same place every single time. And so you can create workflows because the mail is scanning it in, creating it into a way for the technology to read, and then creating a workflow based on that meaning. So it's going to look, Foundation AI claims that it can take a denial letter and find the client's name, tell me what the letter's about, like a denial letter, then go into our Litify system, find the client's name, put it into the Litify, which is the storage, DocRio file storage, the file management software within Litify, store it where it's supposed to be in the right folder, and then assign a task to the appropriate person for the management of that denial letter. And so one of the things that Foundation obviously AI gives us is one, consistency. No one's accidentally putting the denial letter in the wrong client. They profess like a 98, 99% accuracy. And you're supposed to work through to make sure that, because it's constantly learning. It's not just stagnant. It's constantly learning from what you tell it, so that it's making less mistakes over time. So you're getting the consistency of a computer doing something that can sometimes get one routine for your people. So then they're more prone to making mistakes. So you know it's going to end up in the right folder, so you can count on that. But also, you're lessening their time in processing that mail. Obviously, also because we have governmental aid practice areas, the amount of mail that we get is it's significant.
We probably get 1,000 pieces of mail a month.
It is
at least 1,000 pieces of mail a month from the government.
And so you count right now on our team to, one, sort the mail, then another person scans the mail, then another person, or sometimes the same person, processes that mail within Litify. I came on, as everyone knows, it's a COVID hire, and we didn't have anybody in the building. So mail was challenging. And then when we've had people that were sick or people that are on vacation, now even post-COVID, what we're trying to eliminate with this solution, if Marc one day allows me to have it, is to, one, obviously reduce time, but also give people an opportunity to do more customer service, client high touch things. Because the mail is so important, it's not like it goes to a mail clerk or anything. We trust certain people to touch the mail. And so now they can actually do more customer service things,
Right.
which is really the ultimate goal of technology.
Right. It'll freeze your time to do what's important, which is touch the client, make the client happy. We're a customer service business. So I kind of equate this. So, are you in a manufacturing line that's manufacturing, furniture, versus are you a customer cabinet maker that makes custom cabinets for high-end homes?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Same thing in legal. In our world, we are a volume practice. We handle thousands of files that are very repetitive in nature. So therefore, it's incumbent upon us to be as efficient as possible and to use whatever tools available, whether it be a scanning machine or a postage machine or AI, to process cases fast, quickly, and efficiently, versus, say, if you're my friend, I was listening to Michael Cowan's podcast yesterday. Michael Cowan, great truck accident lawyer out of San Antonio. There's a plug for you, Michael. His work is more what I would call more custom work. Mm-hmm. He handles I'm probably just maybe a dozen or couple of dozen cases at a time at best. So all of his work is very customized. So He would be in sort of he would be in that custom cabinet workshop where he's creating unique individual products, services for each client. Whereas in our world, it's very, very assembly line until it gets to the ultimate hearing before the judge. That's when the magic comes in. It kind of depends, for our listeners out there, where are you on this scale?
But even in those custom cabinet makers, I would challenge that there is something in your firm that is very routine, task heavy, that you could find and leverage technology / AI to ensure consistent results.
So I have found I use AI a lot now in the marketing side of things.
Yep.
AI has a lot of great tools, and it's sometimes just helps you ideate. So the other day I was writing a new ebook on elder law, and I used AI to help me research it and come up with topics. It helped me come up with the outline of the book. Then I started thinking about, I need a title for this damn book. And I actually gave it a few parameters. I said, I need a title and a secondary byline title that will appeal to the masses and will be SEO friendly. That was kind of one of the catches. It needed to be something that would be searchable, that would fit within what would be the normal search terms that somebody looking for an elder law attorney would find. And I said, give me your top 10 list. And he gave me a top 10 list. Hated all of them. And I gave it a few more parameters, like, yeah, that wasn't very good. I need this, I tweaked it a little bit. It gave me 10 more. All right, so I found 3 that were okay.
Okay.
So I said, these 3 are okay, but let's work off of this theme. Give me 10 more based off of what I liked about these 3. And we just sort of refined it. And finally, I came up with 2 that I sort of liked, and I melded the 2 that I liked. So I actually didn't use the chat result, but I took this process, and all it was just me talking and bouncing ideas off of somebody. It's just that somebody happened to be an inanimate object. I always thank ChatGPT when I get done with it, because one day when it takes over the world, I want to make sure that it
because you're afraid it's not inanimate.
One day when it takes over the world, I wanted to make sure that I will be complicit in your takeover of the world. Do not kill me.
You're a polite underling.
I will be complicit in your takeover when it happens. So I always thank the chat. With that, any final thoughts?
No, I think AI can be exciting. Just don't be intimidated by it. Let us know what you think, though.
It's just a tool. Just remember, it is just a tool like anything else. And use it to your benefit, and don't be stupid, and don't hit yourself in the thumb with your hammer with your tool. Okay?
Don't get disbarred.
Don't get disbarred over AI. And with that, I'm getting the high sign here that we are out of time. So I want to thank everybody for listening to the Successful Barrister podcast, where legal legends are made. I'm Marc.
And I'm Diana.
And together we're the dynamic duo of law. Please remember to rate and review us wherever you get your podcast. And if you've enjoyed this podcast, tell your friends so we can grow our audience. Visit us at successfulbarrister.com, and make sure to visit our sponsor, Marc Whitehead Associates, a national disability law firm, at disabilitydenials.com. And with that, we are out of here.
Bye, guys.